When you think about the ocean, it's not just about the giant whales or the menacing sharks. There's a whole world of creatures out there, some of which you can't even begin to imagine. And just like everything else, they meet their end. So what happens to them? Well, a lot of them find their way to our shores, but it's not only the animals. People find everything from a huge tree, whale vomit, and even drugs washed up on the beach. So let's take a look at some of the most interesting things that have made their way to the shore. Number 1. Woman finds a massive tree. Philip Luckman, a schoolteacher, found this gigantic 200-foot driftwood tree in 2010 while walking along the shores of La Push, which is a corner on the northwest coast of Washington's Olympic Peninsula. She even snapped a picture with her daughter standing by it. She's 6 feet tall, just to give us all a bit of perspective. And let me tell you, this tree was huge. It was somewhere between 5 and 10 feet thick. Can you imagine how strong the wind would be to uproot this giant and send it on a journey to end up as driftwood? But that's not even the best part. The woman who found this tree noticed something unusual, a message carved into the trunk. Not in any language you or I would recognize, but runes and symbols. She planned to go back, get a closer look, maybe snap a picture or two, but when she returned, the tree was gone, vanished. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Was it a message from our ancestors or maybe an ominous warning? Where did it go? We can just ask questions. And now, what if I tell you about something that will make you question if you're the part of a murder mystery novel? Number 2. A shoe with something strange inside. In 2016, Charlotte Stevens and her husband decided to have a bit of an athletic weekend and go for a hike on Botanical Beach near Port Renfrew. There, the husband came across a shoe. But it wasn't the shoe that was suspicious. It was what was inside, a human foot. Now, if you're thinking this is some kind of one-off creepy find, think again. This was the 13th foot that's popped up in British Columbia since 2007. You might be wondering, does that mean there is a serial killer out there with a weird foot obsession, or maybe a gang that's got it in for feet? Well, experts said that in 10 out of the previous 12 cases, the foot cutting off was either by accident or just the result of suicide. And this one might be a similar case. So I'm just thankful there was no foul play. Number 3, a dead creature that looks like a rolled-up carpet. Back in March 2016 on Bonfil Beach in Acapulco, Mexico, beachgoers found a huge, mysterious sea creature washed up. It was this giant, 4-meter-long, grayish blob that got everyone scratching their heads wondering, what on earth is this thing? Is it a giant squid? An alien? Or just a new species, perhaps? Looks like everyone was thinking too out of the box, because a marine mammal expert from the National Museum of Natural History debunked all these possibilities. This was just the remains of a sperm whale, specifically the part above its jaw, minus the spermaceti organ, which is used in producing its distinctive oil. And those things that looked like alien tech? Just the whale's nasal plugs. And this whale was pretty big, around 9 to 12 meters long, judging by the size of the junk. That's a technical term for the whale's connective tissue, by the way. Not what you're thinking, but how did it even end up on the beach? It looks like the ocean's rough weather might have separated this part of the whale from the rest and brought it to shore. The ocean really likes to play rough, doesn't it? Number 4. Millions worth of cocaine. Then we have Valerie McGee, who took her dog Rudy for a stroll by the beach. But, oh boy, did things take a turn. Rudy, the curious Irish setter, found a bunch of sports bags on the shore near Hopton Holiday Village. And guess what? This wasn't your ordinary beach find. Inside these bags was a jackpot, but not the kind you'd expect. There were huge amounts of coke and obviously not the drink, but the Class A drug. Put it all together and you've got a stash worth over £50 million worth of drugs. Yeah, you heard that right, £50 million. The National Crime Agency confirmed they found 360 kilos of cocaine. It might just be the biggest haul in recent times. Regardless, whoever owned that must have had quite a blow to their business, and for good reason. If it wasn't Valerie who found it, some druggie might have had a field day. Number 5. A 180-million-year-old sea dragon. Joe Davis, who's pretty much the go-to guy for conservation at the Leicestershire and Rutland Wildlife Trust, found the most unbelievable thing at Rutland Water Nature Reserve, right in the heart of the East Midlands, back in January 2021. When he was walking through a drained lagoon with his colleague Paul Trevor, he spotted some objects poking out of the mud. At first glance, they looked like old clay pipes, but Joe, having a keen eye from his days finding whale and dolphin bones in the Hebrides, was suspicious that they kinda looked like vertebrae. And guess what? He was right. This one was not just any specimen, but the largest and most complete one ever found there. Fast forward, and experts were all over the place, confirming that what Joe found was a massive 30-foot-long skeleton of an ichthyosaur. These creatures, often called sea dragons because of their massive teeth and eyes, used to roam the seas around 180 million years ago. And it's not just any ichthyosaur, it's a Temnodontosaurus trigonodon. This was the first time this species was seen in the UK. These marine giants could have been 82 feet long. They were part of a massive group that first showed up during the Triassic period, about 250 million years ago, and ruled the seas until about 90 million years ago, when they vanished in the late Cretaceous period. Can you believe that this giant lived during a time when the Earth was a whole different world, and yet here it was, its skeleton perfectly preserved in sand, ready for us to see? Number 6. Huge pipes. If you're about to go hang out with your family on the beach, the last thing you'd expect to stumble upon would be giant pipes. Yes, you heard that right. At this point, you just know there are a lot of options, but this time, it was pipes. I mean, seriously, huge plastic pipes. I'm talking about pipes with an 8-foot diameter, kind of like the ones you see in those construction sites, but even bigger. And the longest piece? It stretches out to like 1,574 feet. That's like, what, 5 football fields end to end? These massive pipes washed ashore at places like Horsey, Winterton, and Sea Palling. Now, how in the world did they even get there, you ask? Well, they were being towed all the way to Algeria in North Africa for this massive project. But somewhere off the East Anglian coast, they decided to take a little unauthorized beach holiday. Imagine how hard it would have been for the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency to get all these pipes gathered up and back on their way. Number 7. Exploding whale. The next unexpected discovery takes us to the Faroe Islands, where a dead sperm whale made a rather explosive entrance onto the shore. The whale had been stranded for a couple of days, and it's safe to say the island was getting smelly. But marine biologist Bjarni Mikkelsen decided to see what was going on. As Bjarni made the first incision, the pressure from built-up methane gas, a byproduct of decomposition, exploded the whale's insides. Despite its rather sad end, this whale wasn't the victim of a Faroe's hunting expedition. Nope, it had simply reached the end of its life before this explosion. Luckily for Bjarni, he managed to dodge the flying debris just in the nick of time. Imagine if he got hit. Not only could he have got seriously hurt, but the smell. He would be smelling deadly fishy for days. Number 8. 1,000 of dead fish. If you're going to a fishing port, there are surely going to be fishes. But in the water, not on the beach. That wasn't the case for Toi Fishing Port, where a blanket of dead sardines and mackerel covered the ground for over a kilometer. This isn't just a handful of fish. We're looking at an estimated 1,200 tons of them. Makes you feel like you're in the universe of Franz Kafka, doesn't it? And people think the Fukushima nuclear plant had a huge hand in this tragedy. How? Well, wastewater from there contains tritium, a type of radioactive material. But water monitoring hasn't shown any weirdness in the ocean since they started releasing this water back in August. So that theory might not hold water, pun intended. But then again, who knows what's the truth when it comes to big core? Whatever the case, it was a big no-no to even think about eating these fish. So I can only imagine how they ended up cleaning this fishy situation. Number 9. Little incomplete snowmen made by nature. When I first saw all of these ice balls around Lake Michigan near South Haven, I thought either someone had a lot of time on their hands or had found a big snowball-making machine. But it turns out it was just nature playing its icy games because of the colder months. How in the world did nature do it, though? When the lake gets a bit frosty, starting with some slushy ice forming on top. Then, as the temperature dips even lower, this ice starts breaking up into bits and pieces, thanks to the wind and the waves getting all wild. The waves play this endless game of tumble with the ice chunks, rounding them off into these smooth, almost perfect balls. Depending on how frosty it gets and how the waves are feeling, these ice balls can get pretty big. I'm talking ranging from snowball-sized to downright bouldery, and that's how you end up with this scenery. Number 10. Shipping containers wash onto the beach. Dozens of shipping containers, packed with everything from toys to IKEA furniture and car parts, suddenly became beach decor along the shores near the Wadden Islands after a massive cargo ship became the victim of sea currents on the northwestern Dutch coast, where it accidentally let go of 270 containers. Now, you'd think this would be a treasure hunter's dream, right? But Dutch and German authorities were practically waving red flags because hidden among those seemingly innocent containers were some that were anything but innocent. There were containers filled with a powder form of organic peroxides. Yes, the highly flammable stuff used to make plastics. Despite the warnings, locals on the Wadden Islands couldn't resist. They were salvaging toys and even flat-screen TVs from the wreckage. I mean, who cares that it might be laced with chemicals that could burn your entire house down if you got it for free? Number 11. Greasy lumps of palm oil. Here you can see residents in Hong Kong out and about, rolling up their sleeves to tackle an oil spill. 2 ships ended up colliding near the Pearl River estuary down south in China. The result? A whole lot of raw palm oil spilled into the surrounding waters, and this oil had dug itself up to 4 inches into the sand. Fast forward a few days, and this palm oil made its way into Hong Kong waters, turning the beaches into a sticky, smelly mess. There were white clumps of oil everywhere, giving off a not-so-pleasant aroma, and the local fishing spots looking more like oil fields than anything else. Number 12. New Zealand sea monster. A group of 4 friends on their quad bikes made this wild discovery on the Bay of Plenty Beach, not too far from Pukehina Beach, about 5 kilometers east to be exact. It was a creature with a massive head, sharp teeth, and what looked like the beginnings of flippers. The thing is huge, nearly 9 meters long, but it's hard to tell where the creature ends, as the aftermath of what seems to be a savage attack begins. Now, you'd think that bringing in the experts would solve the mystery pretty quickly, right? Well, not exactly. Even with marine mammal specialists weighing in, suggesting it's probably a killer whale, the rumors of a sea monster just didn't die down. People started tossing around all sorts of wild guesses. Could be a saltwater crocodile, maybe a giant moray eel, a type of dolphin, or hey, why not something prehistoric? In the end, it turned out to be an orca and was identified thanks to its unique flipper. Number 13. Conjoined whale twins. In Guerrero Negro, in Baja California Sur, Mexico, people spotted a pair of whale calves that seemed to be stuck together. Even though, when they were seen first, they were alive, they lasted only for a few hours and soon tragically passed. These gray whales, each weighing about as much as a small car, were about as long as 13 feet. Oh, and how could I forget? They were conjoined, right at the belly. 2 heads, 4 fins, and 2 tails, all shared between them. They started as one tried to split into twins, but didn't quite make the full separation. As fascinating as it was, it made survival outside the womb an impossible feat for them, as we saw. Number 14. A bag with 54 human hands. And then we have a truly disturbing mystery of a discovery. In the Amur River, fishermen found something that most definitely wasn't fish. Instead, there were bags containing 54 severed human hands. Apparently, these hands belonged to at least 27 people, as the local police confirmed through fingerprint checks. So how did they end up there? Well, investigators have a theory. They suspect these hands were medical waste improperly disposed of from a forensic lab or hospital. But next to the hands were medical bandages and plastic shoe covers. Now, even though in Russia, it's not unheard of to chop off hands from unidentified corpses to keep fingerprints for identification. But why both hands? And why not just store the prints in a database? Your guess is as good as mine. But here's what I do know. The company responsible for disposing of limbs from authorities denied any involvement in this morbid scene. Some speculated these hands were taken from corpses to hide their identities for some shady black market trade. Others pointed fingers at the Yakuza or a Chinese mafia gang. And let's not forget the classic suspect, a serial killer on the block with a specific hatred for hands. Whatever the reason was, the result is pretty traumatizing. Number 15. A massive concrete slab. When Southern California got hit by some crazy weather, guess what decided to make a surprise appearance on Junipero Beach in Long Beach? A massive concrete slab as big as a school bus. Well, believe it or not, turns out concrete can kind of float. So Everyone's scratching their heads wondering, what in the world is this thing? Where did it come from? How did it even get here? And probably the biggest question, how are we going to get rid of it? The person in charge of marine stuff said it's part of a dock made of concrete and styrofoam plastic products, which apparently broke off from a nearby hotel. This slab is like a piece of the ocean's waste bin, covered in barnacles and mussel shells. Number 16, the still not extinct fossil fish. When a woman was strolling on the beach in Ocean County, New Jersey, she came across the carcass of a fish. And of course, she thought it was anything but a fish. This thing has no top fin, but is decked out in these tough scales, almost like it's wearing armor. It looks like a dragon that swapped its wings for fins and decided to take a swim. In her checklist were a Komodo dragon, a shark, a lizard, and whatnot. All wrong. What it really was, an Atlantic sturgeon, an ancient creature that's more of a living fossil than your typical catch of the day. These guys have been around for over 200 million years. That's right, they were swimming around when dinosaurs were alive. The one this woman found was about 5 feet long. There was a time when these fish were all the rage, not for selfies or science, but for their eggs, which are a fancy way of saying caviar. But like with many good things, humans got a bit carried away. The sturgeon population declined because everyone wanted a taste. It got so bad that since 1998, catching these ancient swimmers has been almost impossible. And even now, when one turned up, it was... Number 17. The Montauk Monster. In the list of weird beach discoveries, the Montauk Monster takes the crown for sure. It made its grand debut in July 2008 when it washed ashore near Montauk, New York. Initial reports swirling around the creature offered up a buffet of possibilities. Some thought it might be a turtle stripped of its shell, a notion quickly debunked by those in the know. Others whispered about government experiments gone wrong, courtesy of the Plum Island Animal Disease Center located nearby. One expert said that perhaps it was a sick dog or coyote that had taken an ill-fated dip in the sea. And not a sea turtle, since sea turtles don't have fur or teeth. Definitely not a rodent, which would have big, distinctive front teeth. While it looked a bit like a dog or coyote, the eye ridge and feet didn't match. It wasn't a sheep, even though the face looked a bit like one. Sheep don't have sharp teeth. So what was it? A monster? An alien? Well, according to multiple experts, it was just a raccoon destroyed by decomposition and the relentless waves. I was hoping for it to be an alien, honestly. Number 18. Dead humpback whale washes up on Jersey Shore beach. Next up is this 30-foot lady humpback whale, which ended up on the shores of Seaside Park, New Jersey. But it didn't have a happy ending. This whale showed signs of being hit by a big vessel. The Marine Mammal Stranding Center did a necropsy to figure out what happened. And let me tell you, they found some serious damage. The poor thing had a fractured skull, bruises on her head, and cuts on her right side, probably from a propeller. They also found scars from past tangles with who knows what out there. After the necropsy, they buried the whale right there on the beach, letting her decompose naturally. Number 19. Mysterious ball. And then we have a giant iron ball on the beach in Japan, which made everyone's imaginations run wild. This was a solid metal sphere, roughly the size of a tall person lying down, that just showed up on Enshuhama Beach in Hamamatsu. A local just walking by spotted this huge ball and decided to give the police a ring. But a guy from the area mentioned that, at that point, this ball had been there for over a month. What if it was a time-activated bomb, or something even more dangerous? So the authorities decide to play it safe and close off the beach. The bomb squad even got called in to do an X-ray just to make sure it wasn't about to go boom. But no explosion risk, and everyone was theorizing about what in the world it was. A bomb, an alien, a spy box, an ad strategy? People were going wild trying to figure out what it was, and so were the experts. Given all the buzz about spy balloons and whatnot, you can see why everyone's imaginations were running wild. Experts from the city's civil engineering office admitted they're just as clueless. They were making guesses, like maybe it was a buoy, especially since it had these handle-like bits sticking out. And an oceanographer also said the same. Apparently these things aren't as rare as we think and have been washing up on US shores too. A marine debris expert said it's likely been used by anchor ships, so it's not as mysterious as we thought, but it's still pretty interesting. Number 20. turtles end up losing life because of oil spill. In 2010, turtles started washing up along the Gulf Coast, and not just one or two, but like 150 sea turtles had been found either dead or barely hanging on after a massive oil spill off the coast of Louisiana. That's a lot more than what you'd normally expect around this time of year, and it had gotten to a point where it started raising some serious eyebrows. I mean, when the count hit just over 100, the folks in charge of wildlife were like, okay, this isn't great, but it's not unheard of for the season. But more than 150? It's a different story. All 5 species of sea turtles in the Gulf were endangered, and this disaster struck right as they were getting ready for their spring nesting season. None of these turtles showed any clear signs of being damaged by the oil. But given that they were found so close to the spill, everyone had pretty much treated them as victims of this whole fiasco. Number 21. Man finds whale vomit worth £100,000. And then this has to be one of the unluckiest men alive. Ken Willman was on a walk on Morecambe Beach in northern England with his loyal dog, Madge, by his side when he found something quite amazing. Or so he thought. They found this big, somewhat stinky rock that Ken thought might just be his lucky break. He thought he found whale vomit, also known as ambergris, worth £100,000. Now, if you're wrinkling your nose at the thought, hold on, because this stuff is like gold in the perfume industry, giving scents like Chanel No. 5 their lasting scent. A French dealer was even ready to pay €50,000 for the 3 kilograms discovery, assuming it was the real deal. But his dream bubble was burst. Turned out it was just a rock. Number 22. World's oldest message in a bottle washed ashore. Then we have Tonya Illman, who stumbled upon a piece of history while just casually walking down a beach in Western Australia in January 2018. She found what turned out to be the world's oldest message in a bottle. Dropped into the Indian Ocean way back on June 12, 1886, from the German sailing ship Paula. This bottle had been floating around for more than a century as part of a German scientific experiment to track ocean currents. And it ended up on a beach near Wedge Island, just about 112 miles north of Perth. The message inside was pretty straightforward. It asked whoever found the bottle to jot down when and where it was found, and then send that info back to the German Naval Observatory in Hamburg or to the nearest German consulate. The note inside, although a bit faded, included the date, the ship's coordinates, and some details about its journey. Now, here comes the cool part. The folks over at the Western Australian Museum took a look at this find, and after comparing the handwriting on the note with the captain's logbook from Paula, confirmed it was the real deal. And that's about it. Did you ever find something on a beach? Let me know in the comments. While you're at it, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons.